No one anticipated the restraints, especially not mid-flight at 35,000 feet. As 17-year-old Sasha Sterling was forcibly removed from seat 1A, a hush fell over the entire first-class section. Observing a girl in a worn hoodie, they presumed she was an unauthorized passenger. Brenda, the chief purser, a woman who took pride in excluding undesirables, committed a grave error in judgment. She neglected to consult the passenger list, failed to verify the surname, and was utterly unaware of the individual awaiting their arrival on the Los Angeles tarmac. Upon the opening of the cabin doors, the flight crew encountered not merely an irate parent, but a man capable of ending their professional lives in mere hours. What unfolds is a narrative of hubris, bias, and the most gratifying, chilling retribution one could ever behold. Outside, rain lashed against the glass panels of JFK Terminal 4, mirroring the somber atmosphere within Flight 882, destined for Los Angeles. The flight was an overnight journey, typically populated by weary corporate professionals and minor celebrities attempting to conceal themselves behind large shades. Sasha Sterling repositioned her rucksack. Her backpack was a well-worn canvas item, adorned with iron-on emblems from various national parks: Yellowstone, Zion, Acadia. She was dressed in baggy gray sweatpants and a hoodie that appeared quite aged. For anyone casually observing, she resembled a fatigued adolescent who might have strayed from a school excursion. Her appearance certainly didn't suggest she belonged in the boarding line for Group 1. Her boarding pass rested casually in her grasp, her thumb obscuring the seat designation, 1A. "Pardon me, young lady," a crisp voice pierced the background hum of the jet bridge. "Group 4 will commence boarding in 10 minutes. Kindly move out of the way." Sasha raised her gaze. At the aircraft door's entrance stood Brenda, the chief purser, a woman who donned her uniform less as attire and more as protective gear. Her lipstick was a strikingly assertive red hue, and her name badge shone brightly beneath the stark, fluorescent illumination. Her gaze was as sharp as a hawk's, searching for prey. "I belong to Group 1, Sasha stated quietly. Her tone was composed, almost indifferent. This was a familiar experience for her. Brenda emitted a brief, contemptuous snort, nearly inaudible yet sufficiently sharp to cause offense. She seized the phone from Sasha's grasp, her gaze scrutinizing the display. Determined to uncover an imperfection, a forgery, or an error, she fixated on it for an extended, awkward period. The scanner emitted a green signal, legitimate. Brenda's jaw clenched. She did not return the phone gently. Instead, she shoved it towards Sasha. "All right, proceed. Do not obstruct the passageway." No greeting was offered, no smile extended. Only the frigid animosity of a guardian whose domain felt violated. Sasha proceeded along the jet bridge, gaze lowered, headphones already covering her ears. She understood the routine: avoid direct eye contact, provide no provocation. She stepped into the first-class compartment. The space was a haven of plush leather and inviting illumination. She located seat 1A, a window position offering generous legroom, and placed her canvas satchel into the overhead compartment as she got comfortable. Retrieving a sketchbook and a charcoal drawing tool, she sensed gazes upon her. Directly across the aisle in 1B, a man in a custom-tailored suit was typing rapidly on a digital tablet. He cast a look at her, then at her hooded sweatshirt, subsequently checking his timepiece, evidently irritated that his privileged area was being occupied by an adolescent, dressed as if for a fitness session. However, the true issue resided in the galley. Brenda was speaking in hushed tones to a junior cabin crew member, a timid young man named Timothy. She was indicating towards seat 1A, her gestures abrupt and restless. "I don't care what the scanner indicated," Brenda hissed, her voice carrying just enough for the front row to discern the tone, if not the precise words. "A system's malfunction. It frequently occurs with these upgrade standbys. She's likely a non-revenue passenger, some pilot's niece attempting to appear important. Keep a close watch on her. If she so much as requests a second packet of nuts, I expect to be informed." Timothy appeared uneasy. "Brenda, the manifest states full fare. It identifies her as a VIP. A VIP." Brenda emitted a dry, brittle laugh. "Look at her, Timothy. She's sketching cartoons." Genuine VIPs are either consuming scotch or sleeping. She's an anomaly, and I dislike anomalies on my flight." Sasha remained oblivious to this. She was engrossed in a lo-fi hip-hop playlist. As she sketched the wing's curve visible through the window, she felt serene. She was returning home to celebrate her father's birthday. She hadn't seen him in 3 months, having been at an art intensive in New York. All she desired was sleep, but tranquility was the one thing Brenda would not be providing in first class tonight. The aircraft commenced its pushback, the safety demonstration played, and the engines roared into operation. As the plane ascended to its cruising altitude, the seatbelt indicator chimed off. Sasha reclined her seat, drawing a blanket up to her chin. She then closed her eyes. 10 minutes later, she was abruptly roused. It wasn't a gentle tap. It was a firm grasp on her shoulder. Sasha jolted, her charcoal pencil rolling onto the floor. Brenda stood towering over her. "Your ticket," she demanded. Sasha blinked groggily. "What was that?" "I need to inspect your ticket. A physical copy, now." I utilized the application," Sasha stammered, reaching for her mobile device. "It's displayed on my phone." "Mobile devices can be tampered with," Brenda stated, her voice raised. The man in 1B ceased typing and glanced over. The woman in 2A lowered her periodical. The audience was now attentive. "I must verify that you are indeed authorized to occupy this seat. We have a discrepancy in the passenger count." That assertion was false. Timothy. Positioned in the galley, Ray checked the tally. There was no discrepancy. 12 seats, 12 passengers. However, he was too intimidated by Brenda to voice his concerns. Sasha unlocked her phone, her hands trembling slightly. She wasn't experiencing fear, but rather embarrassment. She loathed being the focal point of attention. She displayed the boarding pass. Brenda, however, did not even look at the screen. Her gaze fell upon Sasha's luggage in the overhead compartment. The bag, however, was excessively large for the space. "You'll have to check it at the gate. It fit perfectly before," Sasha stated, a hint of firmness entering her tone. "It's a standard carry-on size. However, it's pressing against the emergency equipment." Brenda falsely asserted with ease that it constituted a safety risk. "I require you to stand. Retrieve the bag, and I will arrange for it to be transferred to the cargo hold. Furthermore, while you're standing, I'll require you to relocate to your designated seat." "This is indeed my assigned seat," Sasha declared at last, meeting Brenda's gaze directly. "Do not use that tone with me, young woman," Brenda retorted sharply. "I've been a flight attendant for 2 decades. I can tell when someone is attempting to deceive. You purchased a basic economy fare and covertly moved to this section, while the gate personnel were occupied. Relocate now, or I will instruct the pilot to return this aircraft to the gate." The passenger in seat 1B let out a pronounced sigh. "Listen, just move, child. Some of us have responsibilities to attend to." Sasha surveyed her surroundings. There were no supporters, only critical stares. She sensed the familiar warmth building in her chest, a blend of humiliation and justified fury. She was aware of her father's identity. She understood that a single mention of his name could resolve the situation. "Do you realize who I am?" Yet, her father had instilled superior values in her. Prioritize principles over pride. Darius consistently advised, "Allow them to reveal their true nature before you reveal yours." "I am not relocating," Sasha stated distinctly. "I paid for this particular seat, and I possess the evidence. Should you wish to remove me, you may contact law enforcement upon our arrival." Brenda's eyes widened considerably. This was precisely the insubordination she had anticipated, the perfect justification. "As you wish," Brenda murmured softly. She faced the passenger compartment. "Distinguished passengers, I regret this disruption. We are experiencing a security incident." The situation concerning security intensified with alarming swiftness. Brenda did not proceed to the cockpit to calm the situation. Instead, she moved to retrieve the restraints, a reflection of the post-9/11 era. Airline personnel received training for managing dangers, yet the interpretation of what constitutes a threat can be subjective. For Brenda, a black adolescent wearing a hoodie who declined to follow a direct instruction in first class, represented a danger to the aircraft's established order. Brenda came back carrying zip-tie restraints. "Get to your feet," she commanded. She had summoned Greg, a robust male flight attendant from economy class, who was unaware of the situation's specifics, only that the head purser required assistance. "She's defying crew directives and behaving aggressively." Brenda informed Greg that the passenger appeared to be inebriated. "We must secure her for the safety of everyone on board." Sasha remained in her seat, pushing her back against the leather upholstery. "I've committed no offense. I am simply sitting still." "Seize her," Brenda instructed. Greg paused momentarily, perceiving only a frightened young woman. However, the established authority on the aircraft compelled him to act. He extended his hand and took hold of Sasha's wrist. "Keep your hands off me," Sasha shrieked, recoiling and struggling. Brenda yelled, performing for the onlookers. "She's struggling. Subdue her." This was an altercation that ought to have been avoided. Sasha, being an athlete, instinctively wrenched herself free, yet the cramped environment hindered her efforts. Greg held her arms firmly against the armrest. The plastic restraints dug into her wrists, uncomfortably tight. They not only cuffed her, but also subjected her to public shame. Brenda turned it into a spectacle, yanking Sasha from her seat and compelling her to proceed down the passageway towards the service area. With her hands secured behind her, Brenda declared, "We are relocating you to the attendant's seat so we can monitor you." As Sasha was escorted past rows 2, 3, and 4, she observed the expressions of the fellow travelers. A few were recording on their mobile devices. Others averted their gaze in embarrassment. Yet no one intervened. No one uttered, "Halt, she's a minor." They pushed her onto the cramped, uncomfortable attendant's seat beside the galley partition. Brenda cinched the seatbelt tightly over Sasha's torso, effectively immobilizing her against the bulkhead. "Now then," Brenda stated, standing over her with hands on hips, "you remain there and contemplate federal offenses. Obstructing a flight crew constitutes a felony. You'd be fortunate to avoid spending this evening incarcerated." Sasha did not weep. She declined to grant Brenda such gratification. She fixed her gaze forward on the metallic clasp of the service trolley. Her wrist stung, and her shoulder throbbed from Greg's forceful twist. Yet her thoughts were swift, lucid, and detached. She bided her time until Brenda faced away to ready beverages for the legitimate passengers. "I require access to a phone call," Sasha stated. "No mobile devices," Brenda replied without facing her. "I have the right to inform my relatives if I am being held." Sasha questioned, "Or is this an abduction?" Brenda became motionless. The term abduction lingered in the atmosphere. She slowly rotated. "You're not under arrest, you're simply being handled." "I'm underage," Sasha falsely claimed. At 17, she was legally a minor, despite turning 18 in 7 days. "You've cuffed an unescorted minor. You're physically touching a minor without a guardian here. Are you aware of the legal repercussions of that?" Brenda hesitated. A bully by nature, she, like others of her kind, dreaded repercussions. However, she had advanced too far to retreat at this point. "You're permitted one phone call," Brenda scoffed. "Use the cabin's telephone. I intend to listen to your entire conversation, and should you deceive the person you're contacting, I'll terminate the call." Brenda detached the receiver from its wall mount and placed it against Sasha's ear. Leaving her cuffed, Sasha opted not to phone her mother or a legal representative. She punched in a number memorized perfectly. It was a direct connection, not a mobile device, but a dedicated satellite office line. The phone rang just once. "Sterling Operations. Harrison speaking." A sharp British accent replied. "Harrison, it's Sasha," she stated, her voice remaining steady. A brief silence followed on the call. The demeanor immediately changed from businesslike to vigilant. "Miss Sasha, you should be airborne. Is everything in order?" "I am aboard the aircraft," Sasha replied, fixing her gaze intently on Brenda. "The flight attendants have cuffed me. I've been taken from my seat. I'm presently confined in the forward galley's jump seat. The head purser is named Brenda. Please connect me to my father." Brenda's complexion blanched. "Sterling Operations." "Miss Sasha," Harrison uttered, his tone lowering significantly. "Your father is presently attending a board meeting in Tokyo. He's finalizing the Magellan Agreement. Get him on the line," Sasha instructed. Brenda attempted to snatch the phone. "All right, that's sufficient theatrics. Harrison, code red 7. Sasha uttered swiftly just before the telephone was pulled from her grasp. Brenda forcefully returned the receiver to its base. "Good attempt, bogus codes. Phony father, you truly are quite a character." Nevertheless, Brenda's hands trembled. She had recognized the voice speaking from the other side of the call. The voice hadn't seemed counterfeit. It resembled that of a personal attendant or a chief executive's assistant. Sasha rested her head on the wall, shutting her eyes. She understood the significance of code red 7. This was a security measure established by Dryas Sterling years prior. It signaled immediate physical peril for family members. "Abandon everything," Sasha murmured, primarily to herself. "You truly ought not to have done this, Brenda." "Be quiet," Brenda retorted sharply. However, she was now pacing. Her gaze fell upon her watch. Los Angeles was a 4-hour journey away. Brenda entered the cockpit. "Captain Miller," she uttered, attempting to maintain an even tone. "The passenger causing trouble in 1A is restrained," but she placed a call. Uttering some unintelligible codes, Captain Miller, an experienced pilot desiring a peaceful retirement, furrowed his brow. "Codes? Which sort of codes?" "Red 7. Something along those lines. A chill went down the captain's spine. He wasn't merely a commercial aviator. He had a military background. He was aware that certain private security companies employed color-coded systems for affluent clients. Furthermore, he knew the owner of the airline's logistical agreements. "Have you reviewed the manifest?" Miller inquired deliberately. "The complete manifest, the one with the VIP notes." I saw the name. "Sterling, simply Sterling." Captain Miller activated the autopilot and rotated in his chair. He gazed at Brenda with the look of someone observing a slow-motion car accident. "Brenda," he stated softly, "our airline was acquired last month by a parent company. Are you aware of the holding company's name?" "Stratum Global," Brenda replied. "Therefore, do you know the identity of Stratum Global's CEO?" Brenda shook her head, as she never followed business publications. "His name," Miller stated, reaching for the aircraft's satellite phone, "is Dryas Sterling. And if that young woman in the back is his child, you haven't merely forfeited your employment. You've likely jeopardized this airline's very existence." Miller contacted the ground control tower. "This is Flight 882. I require the passenger information for Seat 1A. "Yes, complete background details immediately." A static crackle followed. Then the ground control's voice returned, sounding out of breath. "Attention, Flight 882. Stratum Global Security has just contacted us. They're demanding an explanation for the activation of a hostage protocol aboard your plane. 3 SUVs are currently en route to the airfield. An immediate status update on Sasha Sterling is requested." Brenda's legs suddenly felt weak. To prevent herself from collapsing, she clutched the cockpit door frame. "Release her," Miller commanded sharply. "Free her instantly, offer an apology, and pray to God she doesn't bankrupt us with a lawsuit." Brenda reeled back into the aircraft's galley. Her gaze fell upon the young woman in the hooded sweatshirt. This same young woman was presently restrained to a jump seat, as if she were a felon. Sasha's eyes fluttered open. She observed the fear etched across Brenda's countenance. "Is my father coming?" Sasha inquired courteously. Brenda was unable to utter a word. She awkwardly searched her pocket for the tiny key to the plastic restraints. Her digits, slick with perspiration, caused her to drop the item. I made an error," Brenda murmured. "No," Sasha declared, her tone unyielding. "You exercised a choice, and now you will endure its repercussions." The subsequent 3 hours and 40 minutes aboard Flight 882 became an exemplary lesson in mental torment. This ordeal was not for Sasha, but rather for Brenda. Upon the severing of the plastic restraints, Sasha neither massaged her wrists nor cried out. She also did not resume her position in Seat 1A. Without delay, she rose, examined the crimson marks on her skin, and then fixed Brenda with an expression so devoid of emotion and inscrutable that it was truly frightening. "I'm heading to the lavatory," Sasha announced. This was not a mere request. She proceeded past Brenda, deliberately brushing her shoulder. Brenda recoiled when Sasha reappeared. The ambience within the first-class cabin had undergone a complete transformation. The male executive in seat 1B, who had earlier instructed her to simply relocate, was now observing from above his tablet with dilated, anxious eyes. The female passenger in 2A feigned slumber, yet her eyelids twitched noticeably. All of them had overheard the captain's agitated tone emanating from behind the galley partition. It was clear to them that an issue had arisen. Brenda sought to manage the fallout. She neared Sasha's seat, carrying a silver serving tray laden with a warm, steaming towel, a container of Godiva confections, and a glass of effervescent water garnished with a lemon wedge. "Miss Sterling," Brenda's voice faltered, breaking slightly as she uttered the name. I've brought you some light provisions, and I also have some ice for your wrists. Should you desire it?" Sasha kept her gaze fixed on her drawing pad. She was currently sketching a likeness. The charcoal drawing was unrefined, yet the resemblance was unmistakable. It depicted Brenda, but within the artwork, Brenda appeared monstrous. Her mouth contorted into a menacing snarl, with chains encircling her throat. "I don't desire your chocolates, Brenda," Sasha uttered softly. "I wish for you to keep your distance from me, please," Brenda whispered, leaning closer so the other travelers wouldn't detect her desperation. "I was adhering to regulations. You must comprehend the manifest. It was an error. I have a household to provide for. If you would just inform them, it was a misunderstanding." Sasha finally lifted her gaze. "You failed to inspect the manifest not due to an oversight. You neglected it because you observed my hooded garment and my complexion, and determined I was out of place. You didn't shackle me for security. You did it for sport." Sasha replaced her headphones, signifying the end of their exchange. Brenda withdrew to the galley, where she encountered Greg, the flight attendant who had physically restrained Sasha. He appeared pale, pacing restlessly within the confined area. "What did the captain communicate?" Greg inquired, wiping perspiration from his forehead. "He stated Stratum Global is implicated," Brenda disclosed, her voice sounding hollow. Greg's expression suggested he was on the verge of becoming ill. "Stratum, the defense contractors, the logistics behemoths, Brenda. They possess a private security force that rivals the Secret Service. My relative once worked for their cyber division," he mentioned. "They are capable of erasing an individual's credit history in merely 10 minutes. "Be quiet, Greg," Brenda snapped, although her hands were trembling as she arranged napkins. She insisted, "We followed the proper procedure. We'll submit a report. It's her testimony against ours." "No," Greg hissed, gesturing towards the cabin. "It's her testimony, plus the 30 individuals observing, plus the captain, who is currently contacting the tower to safeguard his own position. We are finished." The aircraft's descent into Los Angeles commenced. Ordinarily, the pilot would address the passengers over the public address system, announcing the weather 72 degrees and sunny and expressing gratitude for their flight. This time, an unusual silence prevailed. The airplane executed an abrupt, sharp turn. Passengers peered through the windows. Instead of aligning for the customary approach to the primary terminals, the aircraft appeared to be proceeding towards the airport's distant southern sector, the freight and private hangar facilities. Captain Miller's voice, sounding strained, announced via the intercom, "Air traffic control has diverted us to an isolated parking position for a security inspection. Kindly remain seated with your seatbelts secured. Refrain from standing until the aircraft has fully halted." A wave of bewilderment spread throughout the cabin. "What does that signify?" The woman in seat 2A questioned audibly. "I have a connecting flight to catch." Sasha peered through the window. She observed the tarmac rapidly approaching, and then she saw the welcoming party. This was no typical gate attendant wielding illuminated wands. For matte black Cadillac Escalades were positioned in a tight formation on the asphalt, flanked by a pair of airport police vehicles with silently flashing lights. Beside these vehicles stood 6 imposing, agile men in dark business attire. Equipped with earpieces, they were clearly not standard airport security personnel. The aircraft made a jarring landing. Its reverse thrusters engaged with a loud roar as it proceeded from the primary runway towards the exclusive hangar zone. A palpable feeling of apprehension permeated the passenger compartment, becoming overwhelming. Brenda positioned herself near the exit, smoothing her skirt and inspecting her teeth in the metallic coffee pot's reflection, attempting to project an air of blamelessness. The aircraft ceased its movement, the indicator for fastened seatbelts extinguished, yet no one stirred. The pilot unlatched the cockpit door and emerged. He bypassed Brenda, directing his gaze instead towards a specific individual, Miss Sterling. Captain Miller, his voice resonated, respectful and sufficiently audible for all passengers to perceive. I sincerely apologize for this change in plans. Your father's group has asked for direct access to the tarmac. The front door is being opened for them at this moment. Brenda felt a sudden, intense dread. Instead of waiting for our disembarkation, they are boarding. A portable set of stairs was moved to the aircraft's entrance. A substantial impact occurred upon its attachment. Brenda inhaled deeply, forced a superficial smile, and unlocked the door. She lifted the handle and pulled the weighty door wide, ready to greet arrivals to Los Angeles. The words never left her lips. The initial individual to board the aircraft was not Dryas Sterling. He was a man unfamiliar to Brenda, a lanky, slender man with graying hair, dressed in attire more expensive than Brenda's annual earnings. This individual was Harrison, the head of staff. Harrison entered the service area, his gaze sweeping the compartment with Terminator-like intensity. He noticed Brenda, observed her name badge, and completely disregarded her presence. He faced the passenger compartment, ensure the area is secure. Harrison uttered into his microphone. Two burly individuals pushed past him. They did not resemble law enforcement. Rather, they appeared to be paramilitary operatives. They positioned themselves on opposing sides of the galley, obstructing the passageway to both the cockpit and the primary cabin. The first-class travelers were now gripped by fear. The occupant of seat 1B deliberately shut his laptop. Subsequently, Dryas Sterling made his entrance. He possessed an aura that commanded all attention in a space, standing at 6 feet 3 inches. He was a black man whose broad shoulders occupied the entire doorframe. He was dressed in a dark blue Tom Ford suit, without a tie, and the uppermost button of his shirt was unfastened. He did not appear to be enraged. Unlike the typical display of anger, with a flushed face and raised voice, he resembled an approaching storm, chilling, ominous, and unavoidable. His boarding of the aircraft was marked by an unsettling tranquility. Brenda, acting on an instinctive surge of panic, attempted to move forward. "Sir, you cannot simply board a commercial flight like this." Dryas completely ignored her. He proceeded directly past her, as though she were invisible. He headed straight for seat 1A. Sasha remained seated, gripping her backpack straps. At the moment she spotted her father. The emotionless facade she had maintained for hours at last broke. Her lower lip quivered. "Hey, sweetie," Dryas uttered, his tone immediately mellowing into a profound, comforting murmur. He lowered himself onto one knee in the passageway to meet her gaze. "Dad, hello," Sasha murmured. "Harrison informed me about a code red 7. Dryas inquired, his gaze sweeping her features for any contusions. "Are you injured?" Sasha gave a slow nod, then extended her wrists. Dryas's eyes dropped. Her skin appeared raw, inflamed, and distended where the zip ties had constricted. Clear indentations showed where the plastic had penetrated the dermis. The cabin's atmosphere felt as if it had cooled by 10 degrees. Dryas gazed intently at the marks for an extended period. He delicately brushed them with his thumb, his jawline twitching. Subsequently, he rose. Upon his turn, the previous warmth had vanished. The paternal figure had receded. The chief executive had returned, seeking retribution. He proceeded toward the galley. A profound quiet filled the cabin. One could hear a pin fall. He halted directly before Brenda. Pressed against the coffee machines, she gripped her manifest. "Are you the purser?" Dryas questioned, his tone deep, even, and menacing. Yes, sir. I'm Brenda. I didn't inquire about your name," Dryas interjected. "I requested your position because I need to know precisely who oversees this cabin's security." "I am," Brenda whimpered. "And is it customary procedure for this airline to restrain a young girl seated in her designated spot?" She was uncooperative, Brenda faltered, resorting to her prepared falsehoods. She wouldn't present a ticket. She was aggressive. We must prioritize the well-being of other travelers. Darius deliberately shifted his gaze to the gentleman in seat 1B. Sir, Darius addressed him. The businessman flinched. Excuse me. Yes, you. You've occupied the seat opposite my daughter for 5 hours. Did she act aggressively? The businessman glanced at Darius, then the two security personnel, then Brenda. He understood the dynamics of the situation. He recognized the dominant figure present. No, the businessman stated unequivocally. She was slumbering. Then she was drawing the flight attendant. She was quite forceful. She pulled the young lady from her chair. Darius faced the woman. Madam, did my daughter pose a threat to anyone? No, the woman replied, shaking her head emphatically. She was calm. I found it odd they cuffed her. It appeared extreme. Darius redirected his gaze to Brenda, his eyes piercing. Deceiving a federal agent is an offense, Darius stated, but deceiving me, that's an error. I believed she was an unauthorized passenger, Brenda exclaimed, tears at last flowing freely. She wore a hooded sweatshirt. She didn't appear to fit in. I was simply performing my duties. She didn't seem to belong, Darius reiterated deliberately, allowing the phrase to linger. So you subjected her to profiling? You observed a black youngster in first class and concluded she was a lawbreaker? No, it wasn't about ethnicity. It was Harrison, Darius stated. Maintaining eye contact with Brenda, Sir Harrison advanced, holding a tablet. Acquire it, Darius. Brenda urged. Acquire what? Harrison inquired. What is the market capitalization of this airline's parent company? Darius questioned. It's a division of a regional airline, sir, Harrison responded, tapping the display. Medium-sized, facing difficulties. They've sought a capital infusion for half a year. Shares are valued at 14 each. Acquire a majority stake, Darius calmly instructed. Executed immediately. Contact the broker. I expect a board position by dawn. Captain Miller, who had been listening from the cockpit entrance, advanced, his complexion ashen. Mr. Sterling, I implore you, there's no call for. The captain was interrupted by Darius. You permitted this incident on your vessel. Your involvement makes you equally culpable. Sir, the trade execution is awaiting completion. We're transferring capital from the acquisition trust. We'll possess 51% of the voting shares within 60 minutes. Darius gazed at Brenda, a harsh, contented grin gracing his mouth. Brenda, Darius stated, in approximately 5 minutes, I will officially be your superior. And as your superior, I have inquiries regarding your work background. Brenda began to hyperventilate. You cannot simply purchase an airline just to dismiss me. Indeed, I can, Darius affirmed, and I shall. However, I won't merely terminate your employment. I will ensure that every airline, every railway, and every coach service across the globe is fully aware of your actions today. You'll be unemployable, even for a mall kiosk security position, once I'm finished. Darius faced the cabin once more. Sasha, time to leave. Sasha rose. She took her backpack and proceeded along the aisle, her head held high as she went by Brenda. She stopped briefly. I warned you, Sasha murmured, retribution. Sasha exited through the door and stepped onto the stairway. Darius trailed her, pausing for a final glance at Greg, the male flight attendant. You laid hands on her, Darius informed Greg. Greg shivered. I received instructions to do so. You are an adult male, Darius uttered with revulsion. You ought to have exercised better judgment than to physically mishandle a minor. My legal representatives will be in contact concerning the battery accusations. Darius departed as they made their way down the steps toward the waiting sport utility vehicles. The individuals within the aircraft stayed motionless. Has he truly acquired the airline? The entrepreneur in seat 1B murmured to Harrison, who was the final person to exit. He faced the flight crew for a final moment. He presented a professional card to Captain Miller. This provides the contact information for Stratum Legal, Harrison stated sharply. There's no point in erasing the flight voice recorder. We've already issued a subpoena for the data link. Enjoy your evening. Harrison secured the airplane door from the exterior. Within the cabin, complete silence reigned, interrupted solely by Brenda's muffled sobs into her palms. Yet the ordeal had not concluded. The narrative was merely commencing, for even though Darius Sterling possessed the wealth to devastate them, his interest extended beyond a mere monetary triumph. He sought veracity. He desired to understand the reason for Brenda's extreme malice, and the subsequent inquiry would uncover concealed information Brenda had kept hidden for 10 years. Disclosures that extended well past a single unfortunate day aboard an aircraft. The VIP area within the private hangar bore no resemblance to an airport facility. It appeared more akin to an upscale medical facility. Sasha was seated on an examination table, with her sleeves pushed up. Dr. Reese Thorne, a private physician accustomed to treating professional sports figures, was documenting her wrists beneath a unique light. Significant tissue contusions, Dr. Ariston whispered, speaking into a recording device. Injuries consistent with industrial-strength polymer bindings, with potential ulnar nerve pressure in her left wrist. She'll require 6 weeks of physical rehabilitation and will be unable to sketch or paint for a minimum of 3 months. Darius remained in the corner, his suit jacket still on. A silent, frightening fury coursed through him. For him, Sasha's hands were more than mere appendages. They represented her talent. She was an artist, after all. Brenda had not only harmed his daughter, but had also jeopardized her prospects. The door swung open, and Harrison entered. This time, he carried a substantial physical file folder instead of a tablet. "Sir," Harrison stated, "we've completed the initial in-depth investigation into Brenda Higgins." "Assure me she's innocent," Darius replied, his tone laced with irony. "Tell me this was merely an isolated error in judgment." "Quite the opposite," Harrison countered, setting the folder on the table. "It seems Miss Higgins has been conducting a highly particular, extremely profitable scheme for the past half-decade." Sasha lifted her gaze from her wounded wrists. "A scheme?" Harrison unsealed the folder, revealing flight manifests, seating arrangements, and financial transfers. "We lawfully access the airline's outdated server, naturally. Given that you now possess ownership," Harrison explained, "we uncovered a recurring trend. Every couple of months on extended flights, Miss Higgins manually marks a first-class seat as out of order, a broken seat spring, or a faulty monitor, just prior to passengers boarding. This takes the seat out of the available inventory, so the seat remains unoccupied," Darius inquired. "Officially, yes," Harrison confirmed with a nod. "However, on those identical flights, we discovered a consistent irregularity. A passenger designated as standby or non-revenue is relocated to that supposedly broken seat following departure. These individuals are never listed on the formal upgrade roster." Harrison produced a photograph. The image was a pixelated security camera capture from a hotel reception area, depicting Brenda receiving a substantial envelope from a man dressed in a business suit. "She's been illicitly selling the seats," Harrison revealed. "She targets affluent business travelers who are unwilling to pay the complete $8,000 ticket price. She instructs them to purchase an economy ticket, subsequently upgrading them to first class for $2,000 in cash. She keeps the funds, asserts the seat was defective, and the airline remains oblivious." "And what about me?" Sasha inquired softly. "You were an obstruction," Harrison responded tenderly. "For Flight 882, she had a customer prepared, a gentleman identified as Mr. Henderson occupying seat 4B. He had compensated her, and she required seat 1A to be vacant. However, since you made a last-minute reservation utilizing your father's corporate black card, the system bypassed her blocked broken seat. Upon your arrival, she became frantic. She was unable to inform Mr. Henderson that she couldn't fulfill her promise. Consequently, she attempted to coerce you into relocating to the jump seat, enabling her to assign him your place." Darius grasped the folder, his hands unwavering. "So," Darius stated, "she didn't merely assault a minor. She perpetrated wire fraud, corporate larceny, and breached Federal Aviation Administration rules." "Precisely," Harrison affirmed, concerning the passenger manifests. "Furthermore, the individual to whom she was selling the seat is a vice president at a competing logistics company. We possess a recording of his voice from the flight, inquiring, 'Has the young woman departed yet? I require rest.'" Darius shut the folder. The noise resonated like a pistol shot within the silent chamber. "Connect me with the federal prosecutors," Darius stated. "I'm not content with her dismissal. I want her to face imprisonment. Furthermore, Harrison, please ensure the IRS receives a duplicate of this document. Should she be accepting cash payments illicitly, I question whether she's reporting them for taxation." 72 hours subsequent, the sworn testimony occurred within a transparent walled meeting space in central Los Angeles. This was no equitable contest, it was an annihilation. At one end of the table were seated Darius Sterling, Sasha quietly documenting, and Gavin Spector, an iconic attorney recognized in LA as the predator of other legal predators. Opposite them was Brenda. She appeared diminutive. She had on a modest cardigan, attempting to project the image of an elderly woman. Beside her sat a labor union delegate named Mike, who seemed to prefer being absolutely anywhere else. "Ms. Higgins," Gavin Spector commenced, his tone misleadingly agreeable, "we shall examine the occurrences on Flight 882. You assert that you physically held my client, Ms. Sterling, due to her posing a danger to the airplane. Is that accurate?" "Indeed," Brenda affirmed, her voice trembling. She was defying the flight crew's directives. "We possess the sworn statement from the passenger in seat 1B, Gavin stated, pushing a document over the surface. He declares, and I quote, "The young woman was drawing in a journal. The flight attendant seized her mobile and began yelling. Does that resemble a danger to the plane?" He didn't witness the entirety," Brenda faltered. "We also possess the recording," Gavin added. He activated a control on his portable computer. The chamber was filled with the flight's sounds. The clarity was sharp. This was the cockpit voice recorder sound Harrison had legally compelled. Brenda's voice, "I disregard what the scanner indicated. She's likely a non-revenue passenger. I dislike irregularities." Sasha's voice, "I belong to Group 1. Brenda's voice, "Seize her, immobilize her." Gavin paused the recording. "I dislike irregularities. Is that an official FAA designation for an airline traveler?" Simpson Higgins. Brenda remained quiet. Mike, the labor representative, bent closer and murmured, "We ought to cease. You must invoke your Fifth Amendment right." "We haven't concluded," Darius interjected. This marked his initial utterance. Darius pushed a data sheet over the surface. "We are aware of the cash-based upgrades, Brenda. We are informed about Mr. Henderson. We know you've misappropriated roughly $140, zero from the carrier during the past 4 years." Brenda's complexion paled. She glanced at her labor representative, Mike. Mike rose. He snapped his briefcase shut. "The union protects its constituents from unfair dismissal," Mike stated frigidly. "We do not shield members from federal wire fraud and organized crime. You are isolated, Brenda." Mike exited the chamber. Brenda found herself solitary amidst the predators. "This is our proposition," Gavin declared, pushing a concluding paper ahead. "We have initiated a civil action for physical assault, unlawful touching, wrongful detention, and psychological anguish. We are seeking $5 million in compensation. We understand you lack $5 million. Therefore, we will seize a portion of your earnings for the remainder of your existence. We will confiscate your residence. We will appropriate your vehicle. Alternatively," Brenda murmured, with tears flowing down her cheeks, or Darius stated, "you admit culpability to the federal indictments the FBI is presenting against you later today. You complete your sentence. You deliver a public expression of regret to my child, and you will absolutely never again be employed in the tourism sector." "The FBI," Brenda gasped. The conference room door swung open. 2 agents, clad in windbreakers, entered. These were genuine FBI agents from the Los Angeles field office. "Brenda Higgins," one agent stated, "we possess an arrest warrant for you concerning a breach of Title 18, U.S. Code Section 1343 wire fraud and Section 113, assault committed within maritime and territorial jurisdiction." Brenda glanced at Sasha. "Sasha, I implore you," Brenda pleaded. "I have children. They're attending college. Please." Sasha gazed at the individual who had restrained her to a seat and shamed her before unfamiliar faces. She considered the upcoming weeks of physical rehabilitation. She reflected on the prejudice disguised as standard procedure. You ought to have considered your own children before handcuffing another person's child, Sasha stated calmly. Brenda rose to her feet. The agents rotated her. Click, click. The snap of the handcuffs securing shut echoed as the most prominent noise in the chamber. As she was escorted away, Gavin Spector addressed Darius. That proceeded smoothly. Darius offered no smile. He simply extended his hand and gently pressed Sasha's shoulder. Time to head home. The incident made headlines that night. Footage of a teenager cuffed in first class rapidly spread online. The airline's CEO was dismissed and the purser apprehended. The online world erupted. Stratum Global's shares surprisingly rose as the public embraced the Justice Dad storyline. However, for Sasha, triumph wasn't found in the media coverage. Her victory lay in the serene instant during the drive home. When she understood she was no longer merely a victim, she had become a survivor. 6 months had passed on the physical therapy clinic's wall calendar since the occurrence aboard Flight 882. During the initial 2 months, Sasha found herself unable to grip a charcoal pencil for longer than 10 minutes. Before her left hand cramped, the ulnar nerve injury caused by the zip ties was extensive. A persistent, pulsating memory of the disgrace she suffered at an altitude of 35,000 feet. Yet, Sasha Sterling embodied her father's spirit. Instead of moping, she toiled. With each compression of the therapy ball, every agonizing stretch of her wrist, she envisioned it as readiness, not merely recovery. She wasn't simply recovering, she was constructing. Darius had honored his promise. The airline's takeover was more than just hostile. It felt like an expulsion. He completely overhauled the board, dismissed all executive management, and extended offers to the competent frontline employees, those who had been too intimidated by figures such as Brenda to voice their opinions, were given an option: remain and contribute to a superior future, or depart with a substantial severance package. A majority chose to stay, eager to witness the impact of the Sterling approach. This vision materialized as Sasha. Darius had designated his daughter to serve as the creative director, overseeing the rebranding effort. This was an audacious decision, initially met with derision by Wall Street analysts until they viewed the designs. Sasha had channeled her past suffering into her artistic creations. She removed the harsh reds and uninspired navies characteristic of the previous airline. Instead, she unveiled a color scheme drawing inspiration from elements that had brought her peace during her difficult experience: the profound, tranquil teal of the sea and the comforting, shielding terracotta hues of a desert twilight. 6 months subsequently, the launch day arrived. The location was, yet again, Los Angeles International Airport, specifically LAX Terminal 4. However, the ambience was starkly different from that dreary, wet evening. The Californian sun streamed brilliantly through the expansive windows, casting light upon the gleaming terrazzo flooring. Sasha exited the dark SUV at the roadside. On this occasion, she was not dressed in a worn hoodie or loose sweatpants. She was clad in a custom-made, ivory-hued suit that perfectly complemented her figure. The sleeves were precisely cut to expose the subtle silver mark on her left wrist, a mark of past struggle she no longer sought to conceal. Her hair was styled into an elaborate braided crown, and she sported sunglasses. These cost more than a compact car, yet she wasn't required to queue or present an application. Harrison awaited her by the pavement, accompanied by 2 new security personnel who resembled Secret Service agents. More than typical guards. "Miss Sterling," Harrison uttered, inclining his head a little. "The media has gathered in the primary atrium. Your father is currently going over the discussion points with the governor." "Thank you, Harrison." Sasha responded, her tone unwavering and assured. "What do the figures indicate?" "Advance reservations for the updated first-class suites are fully booked for the upcoming 4 months." Harrison responded with an infrequent smile. "It appears the populace values an airline that ensures respect in addition to ample legroom." They proceeded through the automated entryways. The terminal fell silent. Passengers halted in the middle of their steps. TSA officers raised their gaze. It wasn't merely her beauty. It was the aura of authority she exuded. She moved with the relaxed, deliberate stride of an individual who possessed the property. while her father technically owned it. That difference seemed inconsequential as they advanced towards the exclusive elevators, leading to the VIP lounge for the media briefing. Their route led them by the primary dining area. The odor struck Sasha immediately, the dense, sickly sweet aroma of old frying oil and sweetened beverages. This was the scent of the budget travel experience, the disorderly throng of people. Harrison. "Hold on," Sasha stated, halting suddenly. "Miss Sterling, our timetable is quite constrained. One moment, please." Sasha directed her gaze towards the Burger Barn outlet situated in the food court's corner. For reasons unknown, she sensed an undeniable draw. Whether it was instinct or the cosmos perfectly setting the last pieces into place, the midday meal period was bustling intensely. A queue stretched back with 20 individuals. Patrons appeared restless, glancing at their timepieces and shouting requests above the loud hum of the deep fryers. Standing at the cash register, clad in a polyester uniform marked with mustard and oil, was a woman whose face seemed somewhat recognizable. Sasha needed a moment to process the sight. The woman appeared emaciated, her hair, formerly styled stiffly and lacquered into a rigid shape, now hung lifeless and gray, confined within a required hairnet. Her complexion was yellowish, a consequence of excessive long shifts and insufficient exposure to sun. This was Brenda, yet not the Brenda from Flight 882. The Brenda from before had been a despot, a sovereign ruling her metallic domain. The current Brenda seemed shattered. Sasha observed her, concealed behind her shades. She witnessed a man in an inexpensive suit berating Brenda. "I requested no pickles. Are you illiterate? Is your intelligence lacking?" the individual bellowed, forcefully placing his tray on the service counter. Brenda recoiled. The former Brenda would have retorted sharply, summoned security, or displayed contempt. This version of Brenda merely hunched her shoulders. "My apologies, sir," Brenda uttered softly, her tone hoarse and resigned. "I will correct it. I beg you. Kindly refrain from informing the manager. I cannot afford another disciplinary action, so perform your duties correctly," the man commanded harshly. The paradox was incredibly profound, nearly overwhelming. Brenda, who previously intimidated travelers for failing to comply, was now experiencing intimidation from the very populace she had scorned. She found herself ensnared in a nightmare of client relations, divested of her power, her retirement benefits, and her self-respect. The government's plea agreement spared her incarceration, yet the compensatory payments implied she would labor in low-wage positions until age 80, merely to maintain shelter. Access to the airport tarmac was forbidden to her. She was literally confined to the ground. Sasha advanced a step, and the surrounding throng made way for her. Perceiving her aura of important personage, Brenda raised her gaze to retrieve a fresh pile of cups. Her vision scanned across the multitude and settled upon Sasha. The moment appeared to halt. Brenda let go of the cup. It rebounded off the vinyl flooring. She identified the young woman. It was impossible not to. Sasha's image had been featured in news reports for weeks. The adolescent in restraints. The affluent young woman who resisted. Brenda's lips parted. Numerous feelings crossed her expression. Astonishment, humiliation, dread, and ultimately a forlorn, pitiful glimmer of hope. She appeared as though she wished to shriek, to plead, to implore for clemency. She moved a small step back from the counter, her hands quivering. "Sasha." She formed the words silently, unheard amidst the terminal's clamor. Sasha slid down her shades. Deliberately, she met Brenda's gaze. She recalled the plastic restraints, the ache in her shoulders, and Brenda's smirk when she menaced to contact law enforcement. Sensing the palpable tension, Harrison moved closer. "Miss Sterling, would you prefer I have her escorted away? The airport authorities are able to issue a trespass order, removing her from the premises if she is disturbing you." Sasha's gaze fell upon the trembling, defeated woman working behind the counter. She noted the grease marks and the palpable fear of an individual who understood she was a single misstep away from destitution. While having her terminated now would be effortless, it would be utterly crushing, the final blow. Yet, Sasha grasped a profound truth in that instant. Brenda was already confined, her prison cell merely reeking of French fries. "No, Harrison," Sasha uttered placidly. her voice carrying just enough for Brenda to overhear. "She isn't disturbing me, she's simply inconsequential." The single word, irrelevant, impacted Brenda more profoundly than a physical strike. Sasha then repositioned her sunglasses. She offered no smirk, nor did she deliver a dramatic farewell. She simply turned her back. "Harrison, let's depart. We have an airline to inaugurate." Sasha moved away, her heels producing a rhythmic clicking sound on the flooring. From behind her, she overheard the burger joint's manager shouting, "Brenda, stop staring at the clientele and get back to the fryer. Order number 52 is awaiting completion." Sasha did not cast a backward glance. She entered the private elevator, and as its doors sealed shut, blocking out the food court's noise and distinct smells, she experienced a significant weight lifting from her chest, a burden she hadn't consciously recognized carrying. Karma had not merely retaliated, it had utterly obliterated its intended target. The elevator doors then opened into the VIP lounge, and camera flashbulbs immediately began to fire. "Sasha, this way. Miss Sterling, please look here." Darius Sterling was positioned at the podium. He glanced up, recognized his daughter, and beamed with pride. He then moved aside, ceding the microphone to her. Sasha then moved towards the podium. She surveyed the expansive gathering of reporters, industry magnates, and cameras. Her hands came to rest on the lectern, the silver scar adorning her wrist catching the ambient light. 6 months prior, Sasha commenced, her voice resonating with clarity and strength through the public address system. "I was informed I had no right to be in this airport. My presence, I was told, was deemed a glitch. My evaluation," she continued, "was based not on my personal character or my valid ticket, but rather on a form of prejudice that holds no legitimate place in the realm of air travel." A profound silence then enveloped the room. "Today," she proceeded, indicating the colossal banners behind her that unveiled the new Sterling Pacific logo, a stylized phoenix ascending in hues of teal and terracotta. "We are inaugurating an airline founded upon an entirely different principle. We do not merely transport passengers, we extend honor to them. This is because one can never truly know the identity of the person occupying seat 1A. You are never aware of whose personal narrative you might be interrupting, and you can never predict when the individual you attempt to suppress will ultimately be the one who comes to own the very wings of power." The ensuing applause was thunderous. It was not merely polite clapping. It was an uproar. Darius clapped the most enthusiastically, tears of pride glistening in his eyes. Sasha smiled. She took a glass of champagne from a passing tray, presented by a smiling, well-compensated flight attendant who treated everyone with respect. She then walked over to the window. Below, on the tarmac, a Sterling Pacific 787 was taxiing for its departure, and somewhere deep within the terminal's interior, Brenda was laboriously scraping grease from a grill. The universe's balance had been restored. And there you have it, the narrative of Sasha Sterling and the flight attendant, who committed the most significant and final error of her career. It serves as a stark reminder that karma is not always immediate, but when it arrives, it repays with interest. Brenda had presumed she could strip Sasha of her dignity, but all she accomplished was handing Sasha the keys to the kingdom. Sasha didn't just exact revenge, she gained the power to rewrite the rules. She demonstrated that the optimal response to disrespect is not violence, but rather a level of success so brilliant that your adversaries cannot even look at you without squinting. If this story satisfied your craving for justice, please hit that like button. It aids the algorithm in connecting with more individuals who need to hear this. And do not forget to subscribe and enable the bell notification. I have another story scheduled for next week about a landlord who sought to evict a single mother, only to discover she was the judge presiding over his tax evasion case. You certainly won't want to miss that one. Until then, always remember, treat everyone as if they were a CEO, for you can never truly know who they might eventually become. We appreciate your viewership.